An update now to a story we brought you just a bit earlier this hour. A Conservative leadership candidate was under growing pressure to apologize to Canada's top doctor. That pressure was coming from within his own party. He is now responding. The CBC's Catherine Cullen joins us now. Catherine, we were just speaking about the criticism Derek Sloan was receiving from other members in the Ontario Conservative caucus. He's now released a statement. What does it say?
Well, right at the top, Vashi, it has his slogan, "Conservative without apology." And guess what? There are not any apologies in this, as you can see, lengthy statement. The highlighting is mine because there's a lot here, and I want to focus in on a few key parts. He has bolded where he says, "Let me be clear and speak directly once again. I did not and am not questioning Dr. Tam's loyalty to Canada. There was no intention to question it. In addition, I never once mentioned Dr. Tam's race or sex." Now, this is, of course, because he tweeted out a video recently in which he said, does Dr. Tam work for Canada or does she work for China? He was certainly criticized, as he notes in this statement, by the Prime Minister for that, but he was also, frankly, criticized by members of his own caucus. And I mentioned before, particularly Michelle Rempel putting out a whole Twitter thread explaining the concerns around some of the language that Mr. Sloan had used. He says, with regards to that particular comment, does Dr. Tam work for China or does she work for Canada? The question regarding whether she works for Canada or for China was a rhetorical question. Sure, I could have just as easily asked, does she work for Canada or the World Health Organization? He goes on to say, essentially, he's not questioning her loyalty to Canada, but he does want her to step down immediately. What this does not say, again, Vashi, is I'm sorry or an apology anywhere. So it'll be interesting to see what Ontario caucus makes of this particular statement. They had asked him to apologize by 6 p.m. My understanding is they're planning on having another meeting later today. The time might be dictated by what's happening in Parliament right now, but they are going to look at the possibility of kicking him out of Conservative caucus because of his comments about Dr. Tam.
And just to go over, Catherine, the pressure that Mr. Sloan was facing, again, it was coming from his colleagues.
From within.
Yeah, from within. And they were saying they wanted him to apologize specifically for this. There is not, as you point out, an apology in this.
Exactly. And some of the Conservative MPs that I spoke to talked about a conversation earlier today where members of Ontario caucus spoke to Mr. Sloan. He's a member from the Belleville, Ontario area. Spoke to him. The conversation was described to me as heated, frustrated, went on for over an hour. Mr. Sloan did express himself. Sounds like some of the things he's saying in this statement are precisely what he told caucus members. He tried to explain himself. He didn't apologize. So the question is now, what is caucus going to make of this? The majority of the people on that phone call today, in excess of 20, I'm told, wanted him to apologize, voted for him to apologize. Only 2 did not, Mr. Sloan and his leadership competitor, Erin O'Toole. So the question is, what does Ontario caucus do about this now? And will Conservative caucus as a whole get a chance to vote on whether or not to remove him?
And it's interesting, I'm just reading through this statement as you're speaking, and there is no specific apology, but he does very much attempt, I guess, to address the substance of the criticism. The criticism being that by asking whether or not Dr. Tam works for Canada or China, he was being racist. That's exactly what he was accused of. He says, the question regarding whether she works for Canada or for China was a rhetorical question. Sure, I could have just as easily asked, does she work for Canada or the World Health Organization? Obviously, Dr. Tam is employed by Canada and not China. While she is strongly affiliated with the World Health Organization, she is clearly employed by Canada, not the WHO. So he is, not explicitly acknowledging the criticism, but trying to deflect it. I wonder, though, if that's going to be enough.
Well, as I said, during the conversation earlier today, I'm told that he did raise something that he's already said on Twitter, frankly, which is that this was a rhetorical device. It was not meant to be taken literally. That clearly has not satisfied some of his Conservative colleagues. He goes to lengths here to say over and over again that he's not questioning Dr. Tam's loyalty to Canada, but he does not say, I'm sorry either. So now it's going to be up to Ontario Conservative caucus members to decide what to do with that.
Okay, thanks very much, Catherine. Appreciate the updates throughout the hour. The CBC's Catherine Cullen from our newsroom here in Ottawa. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.